Hi, my name is Luke Munn, and I'll be presenting the research I've been working on for the last few months. So I've been working as an artist in Berlin for a number of years and now in Auckland. But the research I've been doing in the last while has been really about trying to define a space which I can position my practice in relation to, whether that's reflecting some of these ideas, critiquing them, or speculating on alternatives. I thought we'd start just by looking at the abstract, which provides a compact introduction to some of these notions. So as late capitalism continues its pervasive spread into spaces and temporalities not occupied, the limitations engendered by human bodies become increasingly untenable. The specific form of digitality we currently inherit provides compelling paradigms for a body which operates frictionlessly within this always-on framework. This digital model provides a future trajectory for a dematerialized body which is sleepless, hungerless, discrete, disintegrated, and self-optimized. So this idea that the digital is not just a medium or a set of techniques, but it's also encoded with a range of political, social, cultural ideologies. This digital that we currently have is one of many possibilities, and in that way it really pushes, I think, towards a certain type of updated body, which works within this capitalistic framework in terms of kind of hyper-performativity, but also shifts the body in quite subtle ways. So I thought we'd unpack some of that and looking at some real-world examples of how I think that operates. So in 2012, Silicon Valley software engineer Rob Reinhart was working desperately to kick out this product, and he was really running out of time and money. And he came to see hunger as an energy input problem. This food preparation time and the expense involved as a waste of time. And he did a lot of research into the chemicals and nutrients that the body needs and came up with this product of Soylent. So rather than the Slim Fast or sort of the protein shakes marketed at popular dieting or kind of gym bunnies, Soylent is really marketed towards white-collar professionals aimed at maximizing their productivity. And what Soylent does, I think, is starts to shift time away from this notion of breakfast, lunch, dinner, these sort of biological rhythms, into a flatlined time, which sort of leverages every minute for productive kind of marketplace time. A time which is de-differentiated, which is stretches before you, featureless. And I think it also homogenizes experience. So rather than the food pangs you get or the food coma after lunch, it sort of smooths out experience and frames the body as a predictable platform which is always satiated, which can make decisions in a much more rational way. It's much more similar to something like an operating system. So Rob's actually made Soylent open source, and you have these DIY Soylent pages where, again, rather than the sort of physical body, you have the body framed in terms of the language of software, where you're picking your nutrient profile. There's a wiki. You're optimizing your personal Soylent recipe and ironing out bugs in order to kind of refine and perfect your body as a code base. Soylent in general, I think, taps into this wider space of self-optimization. And key to that is this idea of life hacks, these kind of micro tips and tricks for accelerating your workflow. A lot of these use the language of gamification as well. So this idea of kicking ass at your day job, at getting ahead of the competition, of leveling up. Here's some of sprints life hacks from a few years ago where they're giving you tips about the best ways to clothe yourself or prepare food, and with this morbid calculation of exactly how much time it would save you within an average lifespan. Self-optimization, I think, is really an update of Taylorization. These time and emotion studies that Frederick Winslow Taylor did in the early 20th century aimed at extracting the most labor or productivity from workers within a factory environment, aimed at sort of eliminating the wasted gesture and streamlining the workforce. And interestingly, because Taylorization really used the model of the machine as for the body, it kind of limited, it was sort of dehumanizing, but it actually limited the penetration of capital to the level of the muscle, the motor, the sort of gestural movements, the body as a cog. Whereas I think what self-optimization does is it moves away from the kind of top-down mentality to diffuse responsibility into every sphere of the working day, where this kind of life as work motif, but also provides a kind of deeper penetration in the body where you're leveraging the kind of psychological and spiritual aspects of the body towards the cognitive and effective labor, which has been so important for late capitalism in the last few decades. And you can see here the kind of language again of software, so these better habit loops and hacking your productivity. So moving away from the idea of discipline or obedience into this sort of savvy, self-employed worker, the optimization of the body as a code base. So in the late 90s, there was a really influential article called The Brand Called You, this idea of Me Inc., published in Fast Company. It was really positing this shift where you're no longer tied to a company for life, but instead you move from project to project, and it's your responsibility to market yourself, to promote yourself and reinvent yourself. And what this starts to do is, I think, destabilize the body from something fixed and physical into the space of brands, which is all about images and logos and signs and a kind of shifting brand vision, which is able to flex with the demands of the fluctuating marketplace. I think what social media does is provide a systematic way to disintegrate the body into these compartments of education and philosophy and favorites, provides a kind of common language across the digital platform, which is able to be quantified and monetized, and also provides, I think, a pressure to constantly refresh yourself, and provides these sort of saccharine hits where once you sort of tweak your body brand, you're able to see exactly how successful that was in terms of likes and shares and comments. Franco Berardi reframes this disintegration from a labor perspective. So rather than hiring somebody for the day and having their physical body show up at your factory gates, employers are now leveraging this sort of highly flexible time. In doing that, they're able to extract these chunks of time from the body and without ever kind of being presented with it. So the body is there and is left as something that is sort of hollow and inert. The digital is actually an older word from the 15th century, which just meant something which could be divided up, a number less than 10 that could be displayed on your digits, your fingers, a unit, really. And in that way, the digital is very good at producing digital bodies, even while maintaining this claim to connectivity. So in his book, The Filter Bubble, Eli Pariser talks about the contrast between something like the city square, where you're presented with kind of a range of unexpected encounters or counterpoints to your view, or even the sort of public good, public broadcasting of television. The internet is a medium which can be highly individualized, and that happens through data harvesting carried out through tech titans like Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, but also something that's we willingly participate in. It's something that's self-initiated. And in doing that, the digital is something that is a highly customizable medium. So you move from friend to friend, feed to feed, and you get exactly what you want when you want it. And in that way, you are always within this sort of cocoon of digitality and never presented with unexpected opinions or events. Sherry Turkle picks up on this in terms of mobile communication technologies, primarily texting, in her book Alone Together. And what texting does is shifts the conversation away from this idea of shared time. It removes immediately the voice and removes the unexpected kind of improvised communication that takes place in a face-to-face conversation or even in a phone call, and shifts communication into something which is tightly controlled. So the user is able to specify exactly what they want to say in terms of the content of the message, but also in terms of the timing. And I think in that respect, texting digitizes communication and into these little chunks of information, these SMSs, which can then be integrated into your workflow. So they become just another kind of data flow which can be multitasked alongside other pieces of software or digital platforms or sort of informational flows. And in that way, people become processes. The military, of course, is really dependent on this idea of discreteness. So the drone pilot in Nebraska is technically connected to the insurgent in Afghanistan while kind of maintaining this psychological discreteness. James Bridle talks about drones as inherently network objects in that they allow you to see an adherent at a distance while themselves kind of remaining invisible. And the digital provides a powerful abstracting, kind of abstraction, a kind of overlay where the target becomes a sprite. And as Jonathan Crary says, the pilot is lethally oblivious to the specificity of their targets. So rather than the theater of war, you begin to operate in this kind of benign set of software operations. So smart drugs, again, a lot of these were developed originally for military use, where fighter pilots needed to match the performativity of their machines, going on these long sorties and staying awake for long periods of time. But again, that's something that's been picked up by white-collar workers, managerial sector. So these entrepreneurs that swap tips about how to obtain these prescription drugs like modafinil. and then they're able to match the performativity of the kind of always on marketplace. This shifts drugs away from the deadhead dropout view, or even the sort of wide-eyed junkie stare where you're hopped up on these amphetamines, into this smoother sort of hyper performativity which operates really frictionlessly within the contemporary marketplace. Shadow, I think, is a really interesting app which was recently kickstarted. So Shadow is essentially a mobile app which wakes you up really slowly from your sleep. And the idea is that you're able to then remember your dreams much better. So Shadow comes with this global dream database which you're then able to enter your dreams into. And what it does, I think, is begin to kind of externalize the body. So you're mining the body for this sort of intimate inner life and converting that into kind of killer content which can then be distributed and circulate and rack up these clicks and ad impressions even while your body is sleeping. So even while you're sort of out of commission, even while you're sleeping, you're working. Sort of redeeming time from the zone of unproductivity which sleep is always represented. So those are some ideas I've been thinking about, and in terms of my own practice, again, looking at ways which the body can be rehabilitated, both through my own works, but also through other artists or artworks which kind of operate within this space. And that's it. Thanks for listening.